us later, they are, of course, more than welcome to come up here. First of all, my name is Nathan Kurswell. I'm a park ranger here with the National Park Service. And of course, on behalf of the National Park Service and our partner, the Oklahoma City National Memorial Foundation, I'd like to welcome you guys here to the Oklahoma City National Memorial. Now, this site is just a little bit different than a national memorial you might visit if, say, you went to Pearl Harbor in Hawaii or even out to the East Coast in Washington, D.C. Because this national memorial isn't actually owned by the National Park Service. It's not owned by the American people. This site is privately owned and operated, and we are just here as park rangers paid for by tax dollars of the American people, and thank you very much for those, to tell you guys about the site as a partner with those private owner-operators, to tell the story about what happened here, to maybe help you get a little better understanding about the dynamics and why things happened, and also to help you understand the 8 symbolic elements that are out here, which is exactly what this talk, Between the Gates of Time, will do for you. Now, before you can start to understand the symbolic elements out here, we have to go back in time and understand what happened here and why. And to do that, we go back to April 19th, 1993, and we go down to a place called Waco, Texas. And what was going on that date in Waco, Texas, was the federal government, in the form of the ATF, the Drug Enforcement Agency, and the FBI, had gone in to raid the Branch Davidian compound. Now, the Branch Davidians were a religious group who the government had reason to believe had illegal weapons and were abusing children. The government had gone in the form of those 3 agencies to investigate those claims, were not allowed access to that compound. And so what they did was they laid siege to it. And on April 19th, 1993, in order to break that deadlock, to break that siege, they decided to go in with force. Unfortunately, somehow during the ensuing chaos, a fire got started inside the compound, and some of the Branch Davidians and some of the children that were in there actually died. Now, this is important to the story of what happened here, because there was a young man there by the name of Timothy McVeigh. He had gone down to see what was going on, to witness the government's actions for himself. Timothy McVeigh is important to this story, as you know, because he was the actual bomber, the person who drove the Ryder truck with the fuses outside the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building 2 years later on April 19, 1993. A date that was chosen specifically because it corresponded with the date 2 years earlier, and he meant for us to draw the connection between that. And what he saw as the government oppression, he saw that event in Waco in 1993 as just a further piece of evidence to prove that the federal government had become oppressive and tyrannical towards its own people. They were limiting our constitutionally guaranteed rights, such as the right to bear arms, right to freedom of religion, and right to privacy. So he's going to send a message to that government. They could not continue on the path they were without the American people fighting back. And the way he chose to do that, of course, was by an act of terrorism, by building a bomb that consisted of 4,800 pounds of ammonium nitrate and nitromethane racing fuel that he and his partner, Terry Nichols, loaded into the back of a Ryder truck, 20-foot-long Ryder moving truck, that Timothy McVeigh then drove down here to Oklahoma City. On April 19th, 1995, what we would have seen if we were standing here in what was then a 64-car parking lot, if we were looking west along what was then 5th Street, we would see a yellow Ryder pickup, or Ryder moving truck driving along there. We would have seen it pull right up next to the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. Actually, if you count down from the that first pine tree on the western end, 5 pine trees, that would have been approximately where he parked it at. That's where we would have seen it, almost directly across from us here. It just pulled into a loading and unloading zone. Young man, late 20s, would have got out, closed the door, locked the door, and then went across the street over here. He went behind what was then a 7-story YMCA building, which sat right there where that parking lot is today. And at 9:02 a.m., we would have seen that bomb go off, and we would have seen the carnage and the chaos that ensued. Now, to give you an idea of just how powerful that bomb was, all told, in a 20-block radius, 347 buildings were damaged. 16 of those had to be brought down, including the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building and the YMCA building. Also in the immediate area that had to be brought down were 2 other buildings that were here on the site. One ran where that pathway is out here right now, and that was the Athenian building. It's just a long, narrow civilian office building. And then next to that was the Oklahoma Water Resources Board. And if you go through the museum, that first room you come to has an audio recording of the bomb going on. So that audio recording was part of a hearing that was going on in the Water Resources Board that day, and that's where that building sat. Now, almost immediately after the attack, we all knew that we needed to build a memorial. A memorial to commemorate what happened here. Not the violence, but rather the efforts of the rescue workers. To commemorate those of us who survived, those who died, and those who were changed forever. After all, few events up to that point in the past quarter century had rocked our perceptions of ourselves and our institutions, but also brought us together with greater intensity than that bombing. Unfortunately, 168 lives were lost on that day. 168 families found themselves with an empty seat at their dinner table. Among them were 19 children. To this day, those families bear the scars of having their loved ones torn away from them in such a violent and needless manner. They're not the only ones that suffered. There are also survivors, people who are either within the building or within a 2-block radius of the building at the time of the attack, who also to this day bear the same psychological but also physical scars of what happened to them. All of those scars that those people bear are very personal to them, but they're also shared with all of us. Because terrorism by its very nature is meant to be an act of communication. What the terrorist wants us to do is to understand what they want us to do. They want us to change somehow. They want to make a statement about a perceived need for social, political, religious, sometimes even economic change. And they try to communicate that message through violence. So, and because of that, terrorism changes our world. It changes the nature of how we perceive things, how we perceive our own safety, changes security protocols. We used to be able to go up to an airplane down to the terminal without having an airplane ticket. We can't do that anymore because of terrorism. So all of those scars that those people bear are also shared with all of us. Now, the design for this memorial was selected out of 624 possible designs that were submitted to an international design competition that netted those designs from 23 different countries in all 50 states. Those designs were narrowed down to the 100 most feasible, which were set up in the convention center downtown so the community could come in and vote on them. The 5 designs that received the most votes were then submitted to a committee of 15 individuals. 8 family members, 3 civic leaders, and 4 design professionals unanimously chose the design for the site you see before you. This site was designed by the architectural team of Hans and Tori Butzer and their partner Sven Berg. Groundbreaking occurred on 1998, and then on April 19th, 2000, only 5 short years after that attack, this site was open for the public to come visit. 5 years may seem like a lot of time, but it's really not to get something like this up. And I think it's just a testament to what we can do when we can put aside our differences and work together for a common goal. Now, Hans, Tori, and Sven, they designed this to be a symbolic one. So almost everything out here, almost everything you're looking at, has more than one meaning. And a good example of that are these 2 gates at either end. These are what we call the gates of time. Symbolically, they're framing that minute of 9:02 a.m. when the bomb went off and creating a sacred room where we can always come in and remember to be safe from the hustle and bustle of the city and just be allowed to relax and to recall what happened and the impact it had on us. The east where the sun rises is the minute of 9:01, what we call the last minute of innocence. On the west, the sun sets, it's the minute of 9:03, that first minute of healing in the wake of the tragedy. Everything in between these 2 bronze gates marks that minute of 9:02 a.m. when the bomb actually detonated, that minute of change. Like I said before, the gates are made of bronze, and along with this survivor tree and those chairs out there, those gates provide us with a powerful identity with this memorial, for this community. But for each of us individually, they remind us of why we come here.